Norwegian horse.
No, the Mongolian horse.
Oh.
Welcome to the Heart to Heartland podcast. Here are your hosts.
Hello and welcome back to Heartland podcast. This week will be a little bit different because it's just me in the studio because Isabelle is traveling back home from Alberta, and so she's not able to come and join us this week, but I will try to keep you entertained nonetheless, because I have a story to tell that I've been meaning to tell for years now, but maybe I've just been waiting for the perfect opportunity for that. But just like a few weeks ago when Isabelle did her scrapbook thing, I'm going to tell how it was when I attended a fan event day when they were shooting episode 9 of season 12. So stay tuned for that. But first, I have 3 updates. It's been a slow news week in a way because, as you know, Heartland wrapped filming season 15 last week. So since then, it's been kind of like crickets. But either way, I wanted to mention this because we talked about this a couple of episodes ago. The season 15 launch event that they filmed some time ago when they were still filming season 15. It will be shared as a YouTube live premiere on October 4th, 8 p.m. Eastern. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you'll be able to watch it, whether it's at that moment or just later on. Then Adam Marino's, who plays Rick, album is coming out on October 8th, which is Friday, and it's called My Kind of Trouble. It is at the moment available to pre-order from iTunes, and it will be streaming everywhere on, October 8th. He has posted previews of those 18 tracks he's done for the album on his Instagram. So if you're interested to get a sneak peek, head to his Instagram account. I think it's just Adam Marino, and have a listen. Then Torrance Coombs, who played Chase Powers, will be attending this Fantasy Basel, which is the Swiss Comic Con, and it will be on October 9th and October 10th. So if you're in Switzerland or somewhere close and interested in meeting him, look up Fantasy Basel. And I think the tickets are available for that still. I'm not sure at this moment because I'm filming this in advance. So, as I mentioned earlier, I've actually done a version of this video in a way twice already. Back in 2019 when it was still kind of fresh. Then 2020, and now this is my 3rd time trying to tell this story. And I think every time the way I tell it changes, even though the story itself is the same because, I've only had one experience. But I think because it wasn't necessarily an easy thing to tell, not because I would be extremely traumatized or anything, but because there are things that are not for me to tell. I try to find a way to tell my side of things without kind of betraying other people's trust or something like that. So I don't think I was never really satisfied with the way the video back in 2019 and 2020 came out. So hopefully this time I'll be able to kind of navigate that kind of path when I'm telling the story. And before we even get started, I just want to say that while some of the things I'm telling did not feel good at the time, I understand it's not the end of the world, but at the same time, it was a big experience for me. And at the same time, I don't know, I just don't want to sound entitled or like braggy. That's not me. I don't think. But like I said, it's just my experience, and I'm just gonna tell it how it was. I hope you enjoy this, even though it's gonna be a lot of ups and downs. So I'm gonna start with some background stuff because I feel like they are important for you to kind of grasp the whole situation, and then the kind of build up for what happened. My sister and I, who I traveled with the first time back in 2016, started talking about going back to Canada. And back in 2016, we only visited the Alberta areas, but this time we decided that we would do a little bit longer trip. So instead of doing just 1 week, we did 2 weeks. And the plan was to fly to Vancouver and then drive to Alberta. And I think High River might have been kind of the midpoint of our trip. And then from there on back to Vancouver, but using a different road. At this point, we just wanted to go and see more of Canada and have some experiences like canoeing and seeing the mountains and everything like that. But at the time, I was, I don't know how to describe it, but I was talking to the show's publicist because they knew who I was, and they sometimes wanted to get like a fan opinion about something. So we kind of kept in touch a lot. So yeah, it was kind of like a mutual thing in a way that I got some stuff from him and then he got some stuff from me. So it benefited us both, basically. When we started to plan the route and what we would do and where we would stay and everything, I sort of hit him up and asked, like, do you know if they're doing it this year? Because I know that they usually film the fan events around the time that we were planning to go. And it was because back in 2016, I had won this Fan of the Month title. And when you won that title, you had free access to a fan event day. And back then I couldn't make it. So it was kind of like one of those like, well, if you're going to get back someday, like we're trying to make that happen. So I asked him like if there's one coming up because I still had that kind of access to that fan event day. And he said like, well, at this point, they don't know yet. So he can't say anything for sure. But then he told me like, because, you know, he knew who I was and kind of like what I do, my blog and everything. He said like, how about you come to the set anyway for one day? I'll make that happen. Let me know when you're in the area and we'll figure something out. And I was like, oh, like, whoa, okay, like, thanks. I mean, that would be great, but like, didn't want to get my hopes up because, you know, you never know what they have going on. Because, like, what if they're filming something spoilery? Like, maybe they don't want anyone from outside to the set or something like that. Because we only had like a couple of day window, so I was like, that would be great, but like, we'll see. As we got closer to the trip, we kept in touch and talked about like what could happen. And I remember when they were filming episode 7, I think at that point, one of my friends from the fandom was at the set because they were filming those scenes with Amy, Georgie, and Jade, and Caleb, Jack, and Tim having that competition with the cattle herding and stuff like that. So one of my friends from the fandom was on set, and the publicist had told him like that I'm gonna be there soon. And I remember my friend telling me this, and I was like, there? As in at the ranch? Because that was one of the kind of like my dreams, like that I wish that one day I would be able to see the ranch set like really close. Because back in 2016 we went to the studio, and that was like the best thing ever. But you have to have those little dreams, and one of mine was that I would be able to see the ranch set. But like at the same time, I was like, okay, I'm like, we'll see. So the trip came around, and right off the bat, like there were some things like that kind of didn't work. Like, first of all, our flight was canceled or something. Like something happened with that flight, and we were like, are you like kidding me? Because we had this kind of a tight schedule planned from this day till this day. We'll be at this area, like we'll be seeing that, and we'll be moving along. So we were worried that we would fall behind with the trip. And like we were trying to keep up with the hope that something would be arranged, and it was, in a way, because they were able to get us on a flight that would leave the next day. And I think we flew from Finland to Switzerland, or I think it was, and then from Switzerland to London, England, and then from there to from London to Vancouver. We were like, okay, well, this is not bad. Like, we'll be able to see some stuff while we're in Switzerland and then in London. Like, that's fine. Like, we can work with that. Like, we'll just cancel some of the, hotels we've booked, and we'll try to move things so that we'll able to kind of like catch up. It was a long couple of days, and because of time zones, it was kind of confusing. But we made it to Vancouver, and we were just like, oh, okay, so we're finally here. Like, we can get this show on the run. And at the time, they had one of those really bad wildfire situations. So that was one of those things that we were wondering, like, are we able to move along? Because they were heavily in the Vancouver area, and there were some roads that were blocked, or, there were things that they had to kind of move around, able to make things work. So that was another like uncertain thing that we had to kind of face, but in the end it worked out well, I think. And I remember when we started the trip from Vancouver to Alberta, like we were just a little bit outside Vancouver, and I posted this picture from some cafe that we stopped at, and I tagged the location. Carrie's partner, Brale, not sure how to say her name, was like, hey, you're in the area. Like, what? Like, you're here, because they live in Vancouver. I knew her, or I started following her on Tumblr first, because she posted great pictures from the Heartland set. So I started following her there, and I started reblocking her posts because they were great pictures of Carrie and other cast members. And we sort of became familiar through that. And then we started following each other on Instagram. I really enjoy her posts, and I guess she enjoys mine. So we were kind of like in touch, but not like really talking much. But she was like, so what's the plan? Like, would you be able to like have a dinner or something, like grab a coffee or whatever? And I remember being kind of like, whoa, like like, not that it would be a bad thing, but just kind of like, us Finns are not very social people. But here we were, like in Vancouver area, and people were really like open to having conversations and meeting, and so that's a very different thing that I'm used to. But I was like, like maybe like at this point, like I don't know, because we're heading to Alberta, like we'll be heading back at the end of the trip, like maybe we can do something then. And she was like, yeah, I mean, I'll check on Carrie. And I was like, huh? Like Carrie James, Caleb Bodell, like what? Because at that point I was kind of like, sure, we could meet with her, like because we sort of knew of each other. So that was as far as my mind kind of went. Then she brought up Carrie, and I was like, huh? Okay, like if he wants to come, because it's like kind of like I don't know if it would be a weird situation because I'm a fan of his work. So like what? But yeah, I was like, up to you guys, like whatever you want to do, and like we'll just keep in touch. And on we continued, and I was kind of like, what is happening? Like this trip already feels kind of like real. So closer to the trip, the publicist had contacted me and said that they're actually doing a fan event day around the time that we're kind of reaching the Alberta area. So we kind of planned our stays around that. And when we were in Canmore, we met up with Isabelle because she was living in Canmore at the time, and we had kept in contact throughout the trip anyways. And the plan of hers had been that we would go to the set together and then my sister would tag along. But because of reasons, she wasn't able to go. So it was just me and my sister. I think it was the night before of the event day when the publicist asked me out of the blue, kind of, do you know any Danish? And I was like, huh? Like, why is he asking me this? Like, this is random. But he was like, well, Finland's close to Denmark, right? And I was like, oh, well, yeah, but like, the language is completely different. And I was like, well, I know some Swedish, but that's not Danish. Like, why are you asking me this? And he was like, well, there's this journalist from Denmark that I have coming to the set, and she's doing this interview, and I was thinking like maybe she could interview a fan. That'd be kind of cool. Like you from Finland, she's from Denmark, and you're here in Canada to watch the filming of the show. Like that's kind of cool angle, right? And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, I mean, I don't know if I'm the most interesting person to interview, but like if that's what you want, like, yeah, sure, I can do it. Then the day of the event arrived, and it was really early when we woke up because we wanted to be punctual, we wanted to be there on time, and there was some way to go from Canmore to where they were filming. We used a GPS, but I don't know if it was too confusing for it. Like it's the European version, so I don't know if it was because of that, but for some reason the GPS just wasn't working. Like the most part of the trip, like we were fine. Like we followed the roads, we were going to the right direction, but when we were getting pretty close to the location, the GPS just wasn't aware of where we were going, or there was just something weird about that. I think they had asked that we would be on set at 10 a.m. or something like that, like kind of earlyish. We were beginning to freak out when it was getting close to 10 a.m. I've never been to that kind of set, so I didn't know if they were like close the gates or something like that. And so we were like desperate at this point, and we just drove around and tried to locate people. And this was like next to a highway, so it's kind of challenging. But we asked from this person that we saw, like, I had my phone with me and I was like, I need to find this location. Do you know where this is? Because we had been given instructions how to get there, the address and everything. And they were like, oh, I don't know. Like, I'm not sure. Like, maybe you could try that way. So we were like, well, thanks for trying anyways. And we just kept driving around, and it was getting closer to 10, and we were like, okay, we've lost our chance. Somewhere, one of those roads we kept driving round and round, I kept seeing this big white tent. And I was like, huh, because I remember in season 11, they did this event with Georgie jumping during the mid-season. They look pretty similar to me. Like, this was from way, 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 way far away. I just said to my sister, like, well, those kind of look familiar. Like, do you want to try that? Because we had no, like, other leads at this point, basically. So she was like, let's try. Like, what else could we do at this point? And so we headed there, and what do you know? It's the set. And I remember being kind of frustrated that they didn't give the name of the place, because it's a public place where they hold these jumping competitions. But instead they had given these like weird instructions to us. So like I kept thinking, like, what if we would have asked from the person we saw, like, do you know where this place is? They would have probably been like, oh yeah, like go there and turn left and right and everything like that. But I was like, well, okay, whatever, like we're here and I'm just glad about that. And so we got there and we just walked around. I think there were signs of some kind of to let us kind of know that they were filming something there. And so we walked there and we didn't really know what to do. But I think at that point, the publicist sort of found me. And he was like, you made it. You're here. And I was like, barely. So he called that we would have to sign this waiver. We would give our permission for them to use our likeness on film, because everyone there who's seen on camera has to be okay to be seen on camera. So we signed those, and they gave us a bottle of water, and we basically just hang out with other fans at this point, just waiting for them to kind of set things up. And I remember I was talking to the publicist, and one of my followers for my blog walked up to me, and she was like, oh my God, like, I know you, I know who you are. And I was like, what? Like, how? I mean, at this point, I had made some videos about Heartland, so maybe it was because of that. But I was just like, wait, like, huh? I've never kind of felt that I was kind of like visible in the fandom in a way. So it was strange that someone would actually like come up to me and be like, hey, I know you, I follow your blog. Because it wasn't like I was announcing everyone, like, here I am, like, I'm the girl with the blog or anything like that. It definitely allowed me to kind of relax a bit after the stress we'd been having in the car and trying to find the place. And that just kind of changed my mood. Then after a while, they moved us to the like front part of the location, set us down while they would do some adjustment to the, I don't know what to call it, jumping set they would use for the show. Then Amber Ride on Stormy, who plays Spartan, and she kind of kept us entertained and shared a little bit what we were doing that day. And as you might have guessed, we were filming the episode where Georgie has a competition where she passes out basically after that. But at this point, they didn't like tell too much, just that Georgie would have this competition, And I think they might have mentioned that there would be paramedics on set, and we might see something that could make us worry about her, but just know that she was fine, that it's all part of the script. And after a while, they then moved us to the actual benches we would sit throughout the filming. They sort of arranged us into sections, and I was kind of at the last section, but I could see pretty well, but it was kind of farthest away from where they kind of filmed most of this stuff at the beginning. And then before we started filming, they asked us to remove our coats. It was kind of chilly on that day. It was the morning, but they basically said to us that the episodes would take place during summer, so we would have to kind of look like we wouldn't be cold. It wasn't like too bad, but it was definitely the kind of weather where you prefer to keep your coat on. Before the camera started to roll, we were advised to clap like they do on TV. And at first I was like, what does that mean? But basically it just means you act like you're clapping, but you're not making a sound. So basically you're like doing this motion, but no sound comes out. At first it just felt ridiculous because that's just kind of a bizarre situation. You clapping your hands together without making a sound, because the sound is kind of the point, right? But basically what they were going to do, they would then add our claps in the post-production. And then they started filming. At first, I think they did like the jumps with the other writers, Chase Fellow competition. They did their jumps and they were really good, and the horses were really pretty. And every time they clear the round, we would have to clap like this. Who were on set that day were Amber, of course, then Alicia, Michelle, Gabe, and Caroline Palmer. And between the setups and the crew doing their thing, they sort of came to entertain us, and we were able to ask questions. I remember when they were taking the questions, I just kept thinking like, whatever I want to ask when I go to the ranch. And then there were little like breaks. We would be able to drink water and go to a toilet. I remember Sean's son, Shea, who played young Jack in season 13, being there because he's part of the crew, or at least he sometimes is. And he was kind of making sure that we were okay and just kind of entertaining us as well. So that was fun. I don't know if everyone even knew who he was, but the resemblance is uncanny. So it was easy for me to tell that that was who he was. I remember when they prod Alicia, I of course got really excited and wanted to film everything because I was planning to make a vlog about it and, just to remember everything by. And so during the first take, I had my phone out and I was filming her jumps and everything. And then they were like, cut, that was great. Let's do it again. And at this point, I wasn't sure how closely they would film her. So in my mind, I was like, since I had my phone out on the first time, that means that I have to have my phone out every time in case they're editing the scene in a way that I'm visible in the background or something. So I had my phone out every time she jumped. I know, overthinking, but that's just how I am. And it was getting hotter and hotter. I didn't have any hat or anything like that, which was partly because they had asked us to dress up nicely, and I don't have nice hats, so I didn't have any hat on me. So when it was getting hotter and hotter, I could feel my head getting hotter and hotter. I don't know if I had a sunstroke, but I would say that being in the sun for a long period of time maybe wasn't a good idea, especially because I burn easily. I get migraines and stuff like that. So I was like fighting back, like, please, not now. Like, this is important to me. Like, I want to feel good. I want to focus. I don't want to get sick or anything like that. They kept doing a couple of different angles with Alicia or her stunt doubles, like they did with her, those close-ups where she's like focusing and or feeling kind of weak. And they did that in a way that they had this like carriage behind a car, and then just her going like this, like no horse, nothing like that, just her acting out that she's riding and feeling dizzy, even though neither of those things were true. And then they did a couple of Georgie point of view camera angles with a stunt rider who was actually a man. So basically, Georgie has been played by a man. And I think when I saw the final product, like it was done seamlessly. Like I don't think anyone would kind of guess all those tricks and things that they did in order to make that happen. And, you know, that just goes to show that they're really professional in what they do. The filming came to an end. They thanked us, and the publicist had said to me before the filming happened, like, find me after we're done. I want to like talk to you or something like that. And so we left, and I took a couple of photos. I tried to find him, and he was like, okay, so here's the Danish journalist I was talking to you about. And I was like, oh, yeah, like, yeah, sure, hi. And she interviewed me, and my sister, who was kind of being a fourth wheel at the time, was like, I'm just gonna find a toilet. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll just do this and I'll meet you later. I did the interview, and I don't know if it went well at all. Probably not, because I haven't been able to find it afterwards. But then the journalist left, and I was kind of like, yeah, so about that day at the ranch or wherever, I just started to talk to the publicist, and he was like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, what we've been talking about earlier on. And he just looked at me like I was being crazy or something. And he was like, oh, yeah, I don't know about that actually. Like, yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen. I just remember being kind of like, huh? One of my first thoughts were like, I didn't ask questions during the Q&A because I was sure that I would maybe have another chance. But then, of course, me being me, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, like fine, yeah, whatever. And I was like, okay, I'll see you online or something, I guess. It was kind of awkward, and I didn't know what to do. And I remember being really bummed about it, but at the same time, I didn't feel like throwing a fit or anything like that. Anyways, my sister came from the toilet, and she was like, I went to the big building they have there, and Alicia was actually there. And people were basically trying to like grab her or something, like being kind of like, I don't know, overly excited to see her up and close. And the crew was like, just let her eat in peace, like give her some room. I remember thinking back to that moment and being like, huh, that's funny that they said that, because at the time Georgie was kind of having trouble with eating. It was kind of a weird parallel to reality, because Alicia wasn't able to eat because some fans were being like too excited to see her. Anyway, so we left and I was like, well, I guess this was it. Like, I guess no ranch or anything like that. And I told that to my sister and she was like, what? Like, really? Didn't you say that that was what he had said? And I was like, yeah, but I guess I must have got confused about something, or I don't know. Anyway, we left and it was kind of quiet in the car. And I just kept thinking back to our conversations with the publicist. And I was like, have I understood something wrong? But then kept going back to that time that he had said to that friend of mine that I would be there on set when they were at the ranch. And I was like, well, I didn't imagine it right because someone else had heard it too. So we went to the hotel and I texted Isabelle and I explained the situation and she was like, what? Like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, she was more mad than I was because she knew that it had been a big deal for me and just how much everything like this means to me. But at this point, I remember being like, got to have this great day at the set. Like, I'm fortunate, you know? Isabelle left for that day, and I remember I had this like headache because of the sunstroke thing. And my sister went to bed because she was tired because we had woken up early in jet lag and the whole day on set and everything. And I remember not being able to sleep because I was just like, the more I kept thinking about it, the more like stupid I felt or disappointed or like just felt kind of weird about it, especially because I kind of had this trust with the publicist, but it felt like it had kind of been broken. I think that kind of reflected to everything around the show because people knew at that point that I was at the event that day, and so I knew that they were all like excited for me and waiting to hear my story. And at this point I had not told them about the other set visit because I wanted it to be a surprise. But I just had this all like sad feelings inside of me, and I remember like crying about it because I was just so confused about everything. I wrote this blog post. It had like a title of like Heartbroken or something like that. And I just vaguely explained that something had happened, that I was kind of trying to figure things out, that I might not be able to post anything for a while before, I would know how to feel about things. And I posted it and I was just kind of like, well, I'm just going to try to enjoy the rest of the trip because, some amazing things were still about to happen. And I just try to get thinking like, okay, well, we're going canoeing with Izzy and I might see Carrie, like that's something. We traveled for a few days, and as we got closer to Vancouver, I contact Prale to let her know like we were coming to the city, and if she wanted to meet up, like just say the name of the place and would be there. And she didn't get back to me right away. And I was like, okay, well, we'll still have some time to catch up. Yeah, we just tried to enjoy the city. Then she got back to me and she was like, oh, I'm sorry, like I haven't noticed that you had messaged me, but like, I don't know if we can make this happen after all. Some things have come up and I was like, sure, like no big deal, like maybe some other time or something. And I was just like, well, I guess that's not happening. Then it was our last night in Vancouver, and we would be flying out the next day. And we decided to visit this park. I can't remember the name of the park, but it's one of those big parks in Vancouver where they have those big bridges and everything. And we went there only to find out that it was closed. And I just remember being like, what's happening? Like, what have I done? Like, why are so many things just not happening for me right now? Then the interactive producer contacted me through Tumblr because he kept up with my blog, and we were kind of, just like with the publicist, we had this like beneficial working relationship. I don't know what to call it, but like basically he asked me about fan stuff and I asked him about like official stuff. Like he had seen my blog post and he was like, what's going on? Like, what's happening? Like, I think it was in Toronto at the time or something, and he had been promoting his own movie, but he had just been catching up with everything. And he was like, what did you post that whole thing about being heartbroken? And like, what's going on? And I shared everything with him, and he was like, wait, what? Like, I'm sorry this happened to you, and like, I'm just gonna talk to some people about this. Like, I'll get back to you. I was just like kind of done and ready to go home at that point. And I know that might sound silly, but like everything just kept piling up. And he got back to me and he was like, okay, well, I talked to Dean Bennett, who is the producer, one of the producers of the show, and I think some other people as well. And he just feels awful about this, like that, you were promised something and it was taken away. And like, we know that you're such a big fan and have done a lot for the show and promotion and everything from the fan angle. He was like, well, we're ready to fly you back to Calgary and like, we'll make this happen for you. Like, you'll be able to go to the set, and like, we'll be like so happy to do that for you and your sister. Like, just let us know, like, what do you think? Like, is this like enough compensation for everything? And I was like, that was honestly mind-blowing that they would actually even consider it, something like that, let alone actually do it. Just if I would say yes. I remember actually thinking about it for a while, but at the same time, I knew that I had to be in Finland in a couple of days. And I just knew that it was not possible. And it just pained me to say no. But I had to say no. And I was like, I really appreciate you even like thinking of this. That's so generous. But I have to say no. I have to be at work next week, and like the flight is so long and everything. And he was like, damn, like I was really ready to do this for you, but like, I just hope that what you have with the show isn't like broken or anything, something like that. And I was just like, yeah, I just need kind of some time to think about things. And he was like, yeah, like, yeah, I get it. Like, when you're ready, like, can you contact me again and we'll go through everything? And I was like, yeah, sure. I'll I'll contact you when I'm back at home or something. Because I knew that the flight was going to be long and I would have time to think about things. Later on, when I was back in Finland, we sort of went through with everything that had happened, and I showed him the messages and sort of explained what had happened kind of before he had stepped in. He was okay, like, I want to give something to you to just like say that we're sorry that this happened to you. And he was like, what do you want? Like, just name it. Like, do you want a Skype session with some of the cast, or what do you like? What, like, just suggest something. I think a lot of people would have been like, yeah, sure, like hook me up with Amber or something like that. But I was like, okay, so I have this opportunity. Like, I have to use it wisely. And I knew that for the longest time, the fandom had been wanting an opportunity to interview the writers about their like process and things like that, things they were wondering about. And so I was like, do you think it would be possible to interview the writers of the show? And he was kind of like surprised about that, I think. But he was like, okay, I'll see what I can do. And a little while later, he was like, yeah, the writers are on board. Like, just send me in a couple of questions for each writer, and I will kind of connect you two in a way. Like, he would give the questions to them and then their answers to me. And I remember being happy about that because that was something that I've been always kind of dreaming about, an opportunity to talk to the writers. And I asked them about some things that I knew the fandom had been wondering about, like, where's Shane? Like, are you planning to bring him back? And what was the thought process behind Lou and Caleb hooking up? Things like that. I got the answers back, and I posted them on my blog, and yeah, it was nice that they would do that for me. And then later on, the interactive producer contacted me again, and he was like, kind of like, still sorry about everything. And I was like, it's fine. Like, I'll leave, and I'll be fine. He was like, would you be interested seeing the upcoming digital show Hudson as one of the first fans ever? And I was like, what? Like, seriously? Because Jade is one of my favorite characters, and she's the main character in Hudson. So I was like, heck yeah. I was able to see the show when it was still kind of rough. Like, they hadn't perfected it editing wise, and the sounds were kind of weird, and it was in need of ADR and stuff like that. And in order for me to see it, he kind of wanted feedback in return, which I was happy to give, because this was kind of like how our like working relationship worked. And yeah, so I watched the show and gave them feedback about each episode, like what I think works and what doesn't. Like, does it feel confusing? Like, does the message come across and things like that? And yeah, I think they were happy with that. And so it was fun to eventually see the final product when it was launched. And I wasn't able to tell anyone that I had been seeing the show before, but I was just so excited about, the show, and couldn't wait for others to see it as well. Yeah, it was a lot of ups and downs, I would say. At this point, I'm able to kind of like look back at it with a much more perspective and just everything. And it was a great experience overall in the end. But I think there was a part of me, like, even though I tried not to get my hopes up, that was getting my hopes up, and I was hoping that everything that we had been talking about would happen. Yeah, I'm still a fan of the show, as you can tell, probably. But it just took me a minute to kind of reroute myself and just be okay with what had happened, and kind of accept that my expectations were met, and that it wasn't as perfect as I would have hoped it to be or imagined it to be. And yeah, that's my experience about the fan event day. And if you want to know anything that I might have left out, or maybe you're interested about something that I didn't really talk about in this, leave comments down below or on our Instagram, and I'll try to answer them as best as I can. Yes, I think that's basically my story about how it was to be on set for episode 9 of season 12. I hope you enjoy this, and I'll see you next week with something different.
So, keep your nose clean and your powder dry, as they say.